Welcome and thank you for watching this video. This is Open Reality's platform. We are an association based in Antwerp, Belgium. Our goal is to encourage peaceful and creative activism, and to that end, we organize different forms of events with different topics. This video conference is our very first event in which we will talk about mental health and capitalism. We invite everyone around the world to start similar initiatives within their communities. Now, a few points before we start. Open Reality's platform believes that it is important to go beyond the discussion of what is positive or negative about capitalism. We don't see the value of the so-called, yes, capitalism is not perfect, but look at all the positive things or things that could have been worse type of reasoning. We certainly do not deny any positive changes or developments, but it is simply not our aim to compare or do studies on all the negative and positive aspects of capitalism or any other archaic system or ideology. We just think that this type of debate does not help to move forward, and it certainly does not help to bring us to a new and different kind of reality. Instead, we would like to focus on the following question, which forms the basis of the current and all upcoming events, which is, how can we try to reach some sort of higher level of civilization, or at least one that differs from the one that we're used to for centuries? And in this particular video, as I mentioned, we will talk and brainstorm about mental health. And we will try to come up with new and more attractive ideas on how to be when it comes to mental health within a capitalist culture. We are going to listen to unique stories and experiences of equally unique and interesting people who will use their personal experience and knowledge as a basis for the creation of new ideas. All right, with us today is Aram from Yerevan. Thank you for joining. Naomi, who's based here in Antwerp, thank you. And Milena, who's also based in Yerevan. And I would like to start off with Milena, who will talk about how capitalism appropriates health and well-being and uproots it from the messy process of healing in service of productivity. The floor is yours, Milena.
Thank you, God. So to start off, I was thinking about how the term capitalism, and it's used so much in different circles, and it's like this kind of like chewing gum in our mouths. And sometimes it seems like we know what we're talking about when we say capitalism, but it can also be a kind of abstract idea. So when I started to reflect on, okay, how can I make this sort of closer to daily life? I started to think about time and how capitalism has sort of created a sense of time, and within that time, it's kind of added this speed, or what it's sometimes called progress or development. And within that time, capitalistic time, there's this constant rush to achieve, to produce, to accumulate. So in a sense, capitalism has not only created a sense of time, where maybe without, like outside of capitalism, we wouldn't see time in this kind of linear kind of way that it's been made to be. But it's also, capitalism has also kind of hijacked time. So you hear people always saying, "I don't have time." So I feel like capitalism has made us think that time can belong to us. Like time is something that we can own, like property, like everything else that capitalism says we can own. So I was just thinking about how from the moment that we wake up, from the moment that we're born, throughout our lives, how capitalism affects and influences kind of the path that we go on. I'm not going to say like the choices we make, because I feel like within capitalism, also choices are so limited. I mean, it could seem like, oh, there's so many options. like kind of in a supermarket you go and like there's all these different brands, but it's kind of limited actually. And so we kind of live our lives within this capitalistic system that has created this hierarchy of value that is constructed all around us, and which basically kind of tells us what we need to be or do, more what we need to do in order to succeed, in order to have self-worth or just worth in the societies and in the context that we live in. And of course, I was just thinking like marketing companies spend so much money trying to sort of, take our data also in the past, I don't know, like 20 years since technology, particularly like the internet, social media, and all of that has evolved. Basically, all of this tries to influence and manipulate us to become consumers, and then we do. And psychology has a huge kind of influence on this. I mean, I know that there are many marketing companies or just companies in general that hire, I don't know, marketologists, but also, with this kind of tweaking of psychology in order to influence our minds. And yeah, so like this is manipulating us to sort of make us feel like our bodies are not the perfect bodies, our knowledge is not the perfect knowledge, our feelings are not the perfect feelings, and then we start to consume different things in order to kind of like fix ourselves. So there's this kind of illusion that capitalism creates that we are broken or we are full and complete beings, and that we need to constantly do and produce in order to become wholesome beings. And I feel like when it comes to health and well-being, capitalism also kind of appropriates these things to say that you need to constantly do and kind of get good grades in well-being in order to become or to be sort of within this illusion that's all broken in itself, in order to sort of be able to say or show that you are mentally healthy or healthy. So I feel like a lot of this kind of mentality is so centered on the belief that there is a kind of pure, kind of peaceful state of being, and it smells like incense, and it sounds like singing bowls, and it looks like white and pristine. And I remember recently a friend of mine told me that she finds it hard to meditate because she can't clear her mind, and it's hard for her not to have any thoughts. And then I was thinking, like, that's not really how I learned what meditation is. Like, I learned that meditation is basically like you sit there and you follow your breath and you notice, you observe your thoughts. Like, it's like if you imagine like what it does to your sort of like mental state if you sit there and you start judging yourself for having thoughts. So I feel like this is a very harmful kind of like not the best way to go on this path of healing or even well-being or trying to find a state of balance in your mental kind of being. So yeah, I think that basically what I'm trying to say is that this business of wellness is pretty much caught up in reproducing this belief that healing is about avoiding the clutter in our minds that living within capitalist time has produced in us. And then there's also this kind of thing of positive thinking, and as if like if you think positively, the negative's going to disappear, or by clearing your mind. I mean, like, we're not monks. Like, most people live in, like in this kind of chaotic world, and within like there's so many ways in which capitalism is intertwined with our daily lives, that it's really impossible to sort of separate capitalism or just like clear capitalism out of your life. So I think that's not the most helpful way to go about reaching wellness or being in wellness, actually. And in general, like when you live in a kind of messy world. Like you can't avoid being messy yourself. Um, and denying that messiness and that, and the difficulty, it just only feeds into our feelings of low self-worth, and then it makes it's like a cycle. It makes it easier for the business of wellness to continually consume us, and that's very exhausting, I think. So yeah, in this sense, I see that there's now, there's this trend of wellness, health, and mental health, and all of these things. So you see like so many companies. I mean, mostly like, yeah, but not just in the West. I think this is a trend, like a worldwide trend, where companies try to sort of make their workers more productive, and they introduce different kinds of things within, their offices, office spaces, or even like offer different packages for their workers to go to the gym, to like maybe they'll have yoga in the office. And I'm not saying these things are bad in and of themselves, but like these are sort of tactics that are meant to make the workers more productive, and sort of be able to keep up with a fast-paced life. And the reason for that is also obviously like within capitalism, competitiveness and competition is so important. So you want to make sure that your workers are the fittest, and mentally the most, I don't know, like, what's the word? I don't know, like almost like your mind becomes a technology in and of itself, so that it can, or like a robot, or what is it that they put in computers, and like it's programmed in such a clear way so that nothing else that is messy, that is like part of like life and being a body and a mind and spirit altogether, so that all those things don't stay and don't get in the way of you producing more and becoming the best, better, not just as individual workers, but as like a whole unit, a company, or organization, or whatever, wherever you're working. I would say that for me, our bodies are wise beyond time and beyond capitalism. And usually, like, sort of, I feel like it's also a trend within capitalism to prescribe the problem and then to give a solution. And for me, that's not really something I want to do here. I would just say that I think it's really important to keep in mind that truly our bodies are really wise, and they've existed beyond capitalism, and they've been. And I think it's important just to create moments, sometimes extended moments of pausing, reflecting, processing, feeling, breathing, and just going through just exploring yourself, your inner world, and the world around you, being in relation with other people in ways that are not about doing more or producing more, but just about being. I think something that you said also in your introduction about what are some ways to be in this world, that are sort of resisting capitalism.
Thank you so much, Milena, for that input. That was really interesting. I would now like to go to the next speaker, who is Naomi. How did that make you feel, what you just heard from Milena, and what are your experiences with mental health? Please share some insights with us.
Okay, thank you, Igor. Yeah, I can totally agree with a lot of things that Milena told us about today. For myself, I want to speak from my own experience. I've been into depressions several times in my life. So I've been in contact also with instances like psychologists, therapists, hospitals even, and how my life actually was also a bit more difficult in the real world with those kind of things. So job related, I did retail, I did catering industry, I've been in a car lease company, so I've been around a few places, and it all revolves around being perfect for the customer, to really give the highest precision you can give, to be at your top all the time. But a full-time job is maybe 8.5, 9 hours a day, 5 times a week. So there's not really much time to stand still about how you are feeling. So when you are depressed, it's not that easy. It takes a little bit more time and effort to be at your best, to be at your top. And if you have to be 1/3 of a day in that high prestation mode, it's really not that helpful, actually. So I've always been going on searches, actually, for how I can be happy in this world. In my family, I've been brought up and educated that, okay, being happy means you go to school and then you find a job in the things that you studied. Then you find a partner, then you buy a house, then you have kids, and voila, happiness on a silver platter. But on a very early age, I noticed that's not what makes people happy, because I honestly didn't see true happiness with people. So I tried to find my own passion. I did some makeup artistry because I found it interesting how people want to be beautiful. I also studied to design some clothes, which brought out my creative sides, and it was the first time in my life that I really experienced that I also had a creative side as a human being and not only the worker mentality. But coming out of these things, then the real world is there, and you have to be monetizing your art or your creative hobby. And that's where it gets really difficult because there's so much pressure around. You need to be all kind of things to be able to really stand tall and confident in something that you just started. Plus, governments don't really give you much opening or financial help actually to start up something that you would like. And for me, it's kind of crazy because I don't believe we're all made to be the same. I also believe that we're made to create. But I find really little help around from people who want to see you shine in the things that you do well or that you enjoy to do. So yeah, I just don't like it that everything needs to be monetized. The moment I feel that I need to do a makeup for somebody or make a garment for somebody, or I've also studied yoga teaching and starting to do a yoga class. Perfection is always expected because people are paying you money. So there is such also taking away the fun out of life, and it's not really human anymore. And that's also what Milena was telling, and I understand it completely. Like, people expect you to be robotically perfect in a way, but we are messy and we have darker days and times, and it's okay. But the tempo is so high and everything is moving so fast that you need to, I always have the feeling like you need to jump on the train now, because otherwise you're going to miss it. But that's also like pressuring more, and it's like a cycle. You need money if you want to do something, if you want to go in the world and share your creativity, or and you're not feeling well, and so yeah, the world is going to leave you behind because you always need to be happy all the time, and you try to be happy and you want to go out, but then you're not finding the way. So it's always going around and around and around. Also in my life like this, and it's just I don't understand it, to be honest. So yeah, that's a little bit my story.
And Naomi, if I may, we spoke earlier about shame around this idea of mental issues. Can you quickly touch upon that topic, please?
Sure. Yeah. So shame. There is really little space actually for people to talk about their feelings. Me myself, I had people that I would go to who I would pay because I couldn't find people in my close area actually to speak what I was going through me. I was also ashamed about it because, yeah, it's not really nice to not feel well. But then if I also speak to people now, it's when you want to go and speak to a psychologist, it's quite expensive actually. So people don't really go ahead and say like, okay, it costs around 50 to 70 euros now. So they rather stay in this feeling of not feeling well than really go about and talk to a person about this. Yeah, you have to remind me a little bit more. I think I lost it.
Yeah, no, that was what I wanted to know. So what you meant with this feeling of shame, because the reason, correct me if I'm wrong, why that came up is because remember when we were talking, you encountered some negative reactions from state institutions when asking for help.
Yeah, because I've been unemployed a few times and job hopping a little bit. There are these employment agencies where I went to, and they were listing up like, yeah, your resume, you did some retail job, you did some catering, so let's find something in that branch, in that sector as well. I was like, maybe I really would like to try something else because I don't like these kind of jobs. And she just blunt told me like, no, you did this experience, so it's best that you find jobs in this experience because you won't find anything else. So I just walked away because I was like, no, what's this kind of thing? You're not helping me. You want to help people find a job? That's not the way. Just why don't you find other ways and say like, okay, then if you want to do this job, what are your strengths, or what do you think this job can give you? Or I'm a person who I always like to go and experience new things, and if you teach me something on the spot, I'm pretty sure I can get it in a few time maybe, but then I would enrich myself more as a person instead of always doing the same thing day in, day out for maybe 10, 20, 30 years. How would that be as a human? And I wouldn't feel human. I would just feel like, okay, I'm part of a machine and I'm not getting the right to be at my highest potential and to be at my highest good. So yeah, it's really difficult to find a way to be your best you, because everything needs to keep on turning. People need to get the money and it needs to grow, and the companies need to get bigger and better and stronger. And for what? Because there's never enough. They always gonna want more. So
absolutely right. And I think this is a good bridge to what Aram wants to talk about, namely work and self-worth, and so how working within a capitalist workspace, so to say, or call it whatever you wish, how it affects your self-respect and hence your mental health. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I probably want to start with the fact that I just quit my job the other day. I quit my job, which I really liked. Actually, I liked my workplace. I liked the job. I liked my colleagues. But there came a point where I realized that I couldn't cope with my mental health issues and working anymore. So I had to do it. I was working at a small news outlet based in Yerevan, Armenia, as a journalist. So I want to focus more specifically on work and on the concept of work in general, and talk about this idea of like personal growth and personal fulfillment and personal self-worth, and not only self-worth but worth in general. I have been personally working, like I have had a job constantly almost since I was 18 years old, and I'm 24 now. And I've done mostly customer service. There was a brief period where I did voluntary work for a year in an NGO in Poland, and then I worked as a journalist. And the constant feeling that was there all the time, no matter what I did, was that I was doing it wrong. And the people who I talked to, the people who, like my friends, my family, the people who I loved, the more I talked to them, the more I realized that this is actually a very, very common problem. Because I feel like the world we live in works in a certain way where you, as Naomi told, you are told that you need to get your education, and then you need to find a job which you need to excel at, and then you need to find a partner, get kids, and that's it. And I feel like every single place where I worked affected both my personal life and my mental health in the same way, where I just realized that I was never satisfied with what I was doing. And specifically my supervisors and my managers were never satisfied with what I was doing, or my coworkers for that matter. Specifically, I feel like this is the case for customer service, for the customer service sphere, because it's a very stressful sphere in general. But the thing about that is that it's also very normalized to have mental health issues and keep working. And whenever you talk about mental health issues, whenever you talk about depression or pain in general with your coworkers or with your friends, a lot of times the response is that that the problem is you, basically. That you don't have the right to feel depressed.
Yep.
You don't have the right to have a personal life if you're working. You don't have the right to have mental health issues in general. You don't have the right to even take a day off because you're depressed. And I think this idea stems from exactly this concept of work, which does not only include the job in general, like having a job. It also includes this responsibility that you have in life. That if you don't have a job right now, or even if you're doing your job poorly, then you don't have the right to earn or have other people's respect. You don't have the right to build up. You don't have the right to be sympathized with and cared for. And this is exactly why I started also going to therapy, because I realized that this idea that I was doing my job poorly, and that because of that I didn't have the right to be loved was so strongly embedded in my mind that it affected not only my work but also my relationships. And I feel like this is a case for a lot of companies, for a lot of workplaces, for a lot of relationships as well, because it also affects your relationships. And when people constantly tell you about your lack of productivity, suddenly that's the only thing you can think about. Like, for example, when they tell you like one thing that you're doing well and one thing that you're not doing so well, and it's an opportunity for growth, like all you can think about is that opportunity for growth. And I remember this from actually a TED talk of Brene Brown. I think it was called The Power of Vulnerability. And I feel like when you start hating yourself because you're doing your job wrong or because you don't have a job, you start also sabotaging your own relationships. You start hating yourself and not letting other people love you. Because that's what I noticed and what happened to me also. When I started sabotaging my relationships, when I started not accepting other people's love, other people's care for me, when I started seeing like meeting less and less people over time, because I was just so depressed that I could only think about like going to work and going home, going to work and going home. And like in this particular system, when you have this compulsory job that you have to do all the time, like there is never an opportunity to be happy. There's only an opportunity to work and work and work. And I feel like that's all for now. Maybe I'll ask you later.
Yeah, thank you, Aram. That was a great input. We've touched upon many different topics related to mental health. The question I want to ask you guys to end this discussion with is, how can we be? That's the simple question. Like, what are your ideas, suggestions? What is the so-called, ideal, naive, or unrealistic, situation that you imagine that we should strive for? I hope that is not too capitalistic to strive for something, or to live by, or simply to be, at least if it's only to protect ourselves a bit from those pressures. What are your thoughts, Milena?
I touched a little bit on this at the end of what I was saying. But basically, going back to this idea of time, I've discovered in my own kind of little experiments, with trying to be present with myself, with my body, with my mind, with my spirit, in certain moments, that when I actually pause, time actually extends. And like, I might pass like an entire hour, maybe like just doing nothing, but not doing nothing, which is kind of like exploring, the present situation or just the present. And in that hour, time will just be longer than in an hour of sitting and doing work, for example. This feeling that time is going by so fast, and it's just like slipping through our fingers, sort of disappears. And I think that this is a really nice way to sort of enter into another kind of paradigm where it's outside and beyond of capitalism time. And when not to kind of like, I'm not saying like to be in a kind of illusion that, you can escape that at all. Just how to be present within that. It's like being present in the eye of a storm, like how hurricanes are. So like capitalism is like hurricane all around us, it's trying to wreak havoc. And then like, how can you find a center where it's not a hurricane, where it's not capitalism, and present, and even like pretend like you're the one moving things around. Very abstract, sorry.
It certainly is not, if you ask me. Thank you so much. What about you, Naomi? What do you think? How should we be? You already mentioned about the fact that you believe that people ought to be creative, or that we are made to be creative. Please go ahead.
So in my ideal world, there would be little actually to do with money. And I imagine myself living in this kind of community, more in nature, where everybody has his or her kind of daily task to do. Like, okay, bread needs to be baked, or the vegetables needs to be plucked, or the sheep need to be shaven, or something like this. But everybody has their own choice of job that they like to do. And then for the rest of the day, you can just create and do whatever you like. Is it dancing? Is it painting? Is it singing? Is it I don't know, macrame, knitting, whatever. Our imagination can bring us to so many more dimensions, but yet we just tend to work all the time. And I think as a human, we're made to create, to play, to enjoy life. And if we wouldn't make life so big and keep wanting more, just be happy with what is, maybe time wouldn't go so fast, and also be able to dive in deeper into the things that we love. Well, I also agree with Milena, like things move too fast now. So yeah, that would be the world I would like to live.
Beautiful, thank you. And at last, Aram.
Thank you. Yes, so I think like the first thing that comes to my mind about like this answer to the question how to be is probably to be forgiving, and first of all forgiving towards ourselves, because I feel like in a world where you constantly need to work, like to have a job, and also like to work on your relationships, to work when you're studying, to work while going through your mental health issues, like to work even in psychotherapy, you are bound to make mistakes. Like it's going to happen. And I feel like a lot of the issues that like occur when it comes to self-worth and worth is because sometimes we're not, or at least I wasn't, and probably I'm still not so forgiving towards myself when it comes to making mistakes and not following the path that we're supposed to follow. And I feel like the same also goes for relationships. Whenever like, I feel like it's also a cycle when we, for example, don't really have a high self-esteem because of work, we also, and productivity, we also don't think that we are deserving of love and empathy and affection, and we are not accepting of that love and empathy and affection. And I feel like we should be, or we should try to be at least forgiving and accepting of other people and their worlds and their mindsets and their love, because when we do that, and I've tried a couple of times, it turns out that they actually sometimes, they actually are willing to give you love and affection and be a rock for you when you need one, when you're not able to cope anymore. And I think like sometimes we just can give ourselves a break even when the world is telling us not to. Yeah, I feel like that's.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining. This was our very first event. I am happy to have done this with you guys, and stay tuned for all upcoming events of Open Realities platform. Thank you so much.